This is a continuation pertaining to the disappearance of Summer Wells. Tomorrow will mark 4 years that she went missing in Robertsville, Tennessee, June 15, 2021. I was in deep thought earlier and right before going live pertaining to why the brothers were removed from the Wells care. And Mr. Wells gave a version that something had happened and he thought it was best that the children go into foster care. I don't know if I believe that because I don't believe much of anything that he and his wife have said up until this week with a news interview. Feel free to check out my last live. Why were the children removed? Number one. Did they willingly hand their children over in 2021, 6 weeks later, from Summer's disappearance, or the state removed the children? Is this a conspiracy? I'm piggybacking off my last live, so you'll need to go back and watch the last live to understand where I'm going. Some of you might understand. For those of you who are woke, you won't need to watch the last live, but I appreciate the view anyway. Why were the children removed, Mr. and Mrs. Wells? Could it be that law enforcement put a bug in the ear of CPS and told them that it would be best for the children to be removed because they had something on the Wells, but not concrete enough to bring forward an indictment and or arrest? Because you see, when people spin webs, as I've said before, you don't really know what to believe. And we weren't there. We don't know what's the truth with these people, who was coming on out of their house, the company they kept, the deals they were making with different people in the world. If there was an open investigation by CPS, we have no idea. We just have a bunch of hearsay. And all of it comes from the one head knocker, and that's Mr. Wells. And I always tell people to pay attention to the messenger, because this case is eerily similar to a case out of Hendersonville, Tennessee. The person doing the most talking about a missing child is the person that allegedly was not there. And even in that case of Sebastian Rogers, you don't have proof of where that stepfather was. And there's no proof to where Mr. Don Wells was. And the fact that he spun a web on YouTube about the children, seeing a man walking around that was a predator, strikes me strange even today. Why didn't you go check on your children? So I always tell people to connect the dots, because that is where the truth lies, is the beginning of the story. Someone's on the property and you don't even go leave your job, number one. Number two, the mother was closer, I'm assuming, Kingsport, it's only 30 minutes away. Why didn't she go check on her children? Why didn't the children call the mother to say, hey, Mom, there's a guy up here snooping about? Stay woke, everybody. So now go back to the question I asked. Why were the children removed? Does law enforcement have something that led them to piggyback, double back to the Wells, ask more questions, talk to the children again? Did they get information from an outsider? And they said, okay, we need to talk to the state of Tennessee about these children. Now, someone said, well, Queen, that don't make any sense, because he's now telling us that the case is closed pertaining to abuse and neglect of the boys. And I find that interesting as well, because why would it take 4 years to close the case when these people have shown no interest in getting their children back and have not rallied for the missing child? Pay attention. Is this a grand scheme to, number one, rid themselves of a girl child? Number two, rid themselves of their boy children? Nobody's ever thought about that. No one's ever mentioned it. Well, I mentioned it today. Because they don't have their boy children. And I find that bizarre. Why not? Is this a conspiracy to rid themselves of a girl child and also rid themselves of boy children? put it together. The conspiracy. If indeed these two conspired, Mr. and Mrs. Wells, to rid themselves of a girl child, then that means also Grandis would have to be involved. Bingo card. I had to sit and think about that just a little while ago. That means Grandis played a role as well. Because you see, she is the reason that allegedly Candace got up that morning to go about in Kingsport with her said child and mother. Grandis is the reason for the season. So if she got rid of her child after dropping off Hunter, then that means Grandis is involved as well. And I keep saying that, oh, I don't think she made it back. I don't think she made it back. And I had to think about that just a minute ago. I said, wait a minute, Queen. Then that means Grandis is involved as well if the child didn't make it back, because all three were supposed to have left Hunter's home and went back to Rogersville. So that means Grandis had to be a part of a child being dropped off alive or deceased, or handed to someone alive or deceased. Wow, wow, wow. So Grandis, what do you know? I'm checking all boxes pertaining to a conspiracy to get rid of a girl child. So Grandis, would you willingly go along with unaliving a child and discarding of a child with your daughter? When you made it back home with Candace, was Summer Wells in the back seat of that SUV? If not, where did you all take her? Because that means you're also a party to this nonsense. Unless Candace drove you somewhere else and dropped you off again, and then dropped off the child and then doubled back and picked you up somewhere else in Rogersville and or Kingsport. See, you don't know because nobody's talking. So you have to weigh all options. Number 3, all 3 parties made it back to the house. The child entered the house and somehow majestically disappeared from a locked basement that no one could get into from the outside, per information from the Wells. Then that means that Creepy Crawly would have had to already been on the property lying in wait, and got into the door without making a sound, not breaking the glass, not jimmying the door. Did someone enter into the basement and take the child? How would they know the child was down there? They peeped through the glass and saw the child in there wandering about. Then that means they would have to have made a way into this allegedly locked door. Then you have to ask, was the door locked or unlocked? They forgot to lock it, and the person entered into the basement and took the child out. And then where did they go with the child? Because they couldn't have had a car or a bicycle or a radio flyer wagon. That means they walked the child off of the property on foot. Those are your options pertaining to the disappearance of Summer Wells. She never made it back to Ben Hill Road. Then that means Grandis is a part of the conspiracy as well. The fact that the mother nor Don doubled back to the house when allegedly there was a man on the property means that this was a made-up story to add to getting rid of this girl child. And then you have to go to motive. If this is a conspiracy, Grandis is involved, Candace is involved, Don is involved, what was the motive for getting rid of the child? I think that perhaps law enforcement has something. And that is why the boys were removed 6 weeks later. Because you always have to use deduction at the beginning of the story. As I have said before, the locale, the terrain, the way the street is made, the way their driveway is made, you cannot see anything from the bottom of the road where the mailbox is. So that means no one has an eye view of anything through all those trees. You can't see anything, not a truck, a car, a cat, a dog. Then that means it has to be an inside job by the parents, family members, or someone close to the Wells. And if it's an inside job pertaining to someone that knows them, then that means that person was possibly already on the property. Now, let's go backwards. Who holds the key to this conspiracy, if indeed it is one? Don, Candace, Grandis, and the children. The children know something, but we will never hear from them until they are of age and decide to speak. Grandis knows something because she rode along with her daughter that fateful day. We don't know where Don was. And once again, he's been the orchestrator of the good news, which is a problem for me. The fact that the person doing all the talking was allegedly never there spells deception for me. Why are you talking, and why have you been the only one spinning this story? Why won't the mother speak publicly? So when you go back in time, you add it all up, there's possibly more people involved in knowing that the child is not alive. And as I said to someone on my channel in a comment reply, if she's alive, then where is she? Who has her and why? What do the children know and what does Grandis know? And it will be very sickening to know a grandmother has a whole child missing herself, Rose, and she would conspire with her daughter to unalive and or hand over a child, alive or deceased, to another human being. Why would you do that? So, as I said, there's a reason those boys were removed, and I don't believe Don Wells' version. That something happened and he decided to call DHS and say, come pick up my children. I don't think so. Why would you want the state to have your children when you already have a girl child missing? As I said, I have a feeling the state had something on Candace and Don perhaps, and they had a little chit chat with them after talking to DHS supervisors, and the supervisors called the Wells and told them, this is what's been told to us. This is what we have gathered, and we're going to remove your children from your care. And then these two nimwits never fought to get their children back. Because you have to make it make sense. You have a whole girl child missing. The state allowed your 3 boys to stay in your care for 6 weeks. Why would they all of a sudden pop up and take your children? Yet you say, oh, we handed them to them. Well, why would you do that? Then you complain for years with more souped up versions that your children were kidnapped by the state. The state was holding your children hostage, which makes no sense if you willingly gave your kids up in the beginning. So this is where there's deception, because you're contradicting yourself. How is the state stealing your children when you said, oh, something happened here and I decided to hand them over? For what? A little while? 1 week, 2 weeks, a month? So you could do what? Get yourself together? Did you have a nasty pee test? You didn't pass a drug test? Did they learn that you all use drugs? Did somebody call and say you use drugs, get drunk? And then they just called you one day to say, hey, we need you to come in and take a urine sample. Did that happen? Could that be a possibility why the children were originally removed from your care? Or as you say, handed over, Mr. Wells? Somebody told them that you all use drugs, pilfer drugs. And the state asked you to come in and pee in a cup. Oh, because I believe it's something. Somebody made a call to the state. The government, TBI, found something out that was suspect, such as data on phones, iPads, GPS. It's something. It's something. Because it doesn't add up. That your children were in your care for 6 weeks, and out of the blue, you would hand your children over, and then you will hop up on YouTube and spin all these wicked stories about the state stealing your children. The place where the children were placed was too far. Nothing but a bunch of hee-haw excuses for people allegedly caring and loving their children. And in my eye, you didn't fight for your children. So whether you handed them over or the state took them after 6 weeks of Summer's disappearance, the point is, You never fought to get them back. And you got up here on the wire and lied to make people feel sorry for you when it never added up in the first place. And if anybody's ever dealt with DHS, you know how they rock, especially here in Tennessee. And I've told you before, the state will not just remove your child because, one, a child is missing. Number two, the conditions of the house isn't of other people's standards. So that means, ding, 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 you willingly gave your children up and lied about it here on YouTube, or they found something out about you too, and they took your children. 6 weeks after Summer went missing. Which is it? As I said, the children hold the key because they're the ones that can tell us if Summer returned home, number one. Number two, Grandis holds the key to tell us that she arrived home with Candace alongside Summer Wells. And I got a feeling that perhaps somebody's version didn't match, which to me would have been an immediate reason to remove the children after interrogating the Wells, Grandis, and the boys. It wouldn't have taken 6 weeks to remove the boys if they felt like they were in harm's way, if they gathered all the interviews and said, well, this child's got a different version, grandmama's got a different version, mom's got a different version, dad's got a different version, something ain't right. But then again, who's to say? And that's the part of the story we don't know. If indeed they gathered all these people's interviews and somebody's version didn't add up to somebody else's. Because in the end, everybody would have to conspire together and be on the same page and accord that the child went in the house. The mother called for her. She didn't reply. The mother walked downstairs and saw her child gone, looked around the property, drove off the property, and then made a 911 call that her child was missing. You have no proof of anything after Kingsport, Tennessee. Candace dropping off Hunter. You have no proof of anything pertaining to Grandis, but she's not talking, and she's going along with this plant story. But you never heard her say anything about the mother getting up, hearing the car start. She drove off, she came back. That's something you have not heard. So I'm supposed to believe Grandis fell asleep and slept all the way until after 6 p.m. Stay woke, everybody. Why were the boys removed from their care and or handed over to the state by the Wells? Do all of the family members' versions match? And does law enforcement have something on the Wells? And that is the reason why the children were removed from the care of the Wells 6 weeks after Summer went missing. That's my commentary. Like, share, subscribe. Drop your comments below this video. Take the polls on my community page. Is Summer Wells alive? Or is she deceased? If she's alive, then where is she? And if she was handed to someone, why would her parents give her away? Why would they sell her? And if we go in the belly of the beast, that it's somebody close to the Wells that made their way to the property and somehow carted her off by foot, which I doubt. Why did they do that? I would only have to assume nefarious reasons. And we don't have to go into the details of why an adult would be sneaking around a property eyeing a girl child. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $ McAngie, 129 Cash App. Stickers and chats are always welcome during the live stream. Thank you for your time. Have a wonderful week. Once again, tomorrow will mark 4 years that Summer Wells went missing from Robertsville, Tennessee, June 15th, 2021. And it is hard to even believe that it is the middle of the month of June and almost 4 years to the date that these people said this child went missing. Perhaps law enforcement knows more than they are letting on. They just can't tell us what they have because they don't have enough for an arrest. Because you have to go back in time and ask yourself why these people don't have custody of their boys. And usually that's a bad sign, that something was found out. So this notion of Summer being alive and returned to the Wells because DCS closed a case against them of child abuse and neglect of the boys doesn't make sense. No way would they return that little girl to people who gave up their rights to their own children. I believe law enforcement knows something. Through data, GPS, conversations with outsiders, neighbors, somebody close to the Wells, perhaps urine samples were dirty. It's something. And the Wells are not telling the truth. And I don't expect that they will. As I've always said to you, beware of the messenger. Beware of the messenger. Thank you for your time. You've been listening to the Vault XL.